Welcome, Pewter Report readers, viewers, and listeners, to a brand new edition of the Pewter Report podcast, energized by Celsius, the official energy drink of PewterReport.com. It is a Monday edition of the show. Hope everybody was able to salvage a good weekend outside of what the Tampa Bay Buccaneers put you through during that Sunday game starting at 1 o'clock. And we talked a lot about the game yesterday on the game day stream and the Pewter Post Game show. We're happy to talk more about it today, but the main topic is Todd Bowles being on the hot seat. We spoke to Coach Bowles today. We pried as much information as we possibly could out of Todd Bowles outside of your typical, we practiced well and we got to play better, and we're going to break it all down for you.
We understand that.
We understand that. We understand that we love you, Pewter people. I'm your host, Matt Matera. Joined with me is the face that runs the place at PewterReport.com, Scott Reynolds. Scott, how are we doing after hearing from Coach Bowles again?
We got some interesting answers. Some of it was coach speak. Some of it was stuff we've heard before. But I think he was a little bit more detailed today. And I think the biggest thing we can do, since we are in the room and have been kind of reading between the lines with Todd Bowles over the last 2 years, Matt, is kind of breaking down some of what Todd Bowles said and didn't say and kind of making sense of it. So this is not going to be a who's going to replace Todd Bowles podcast, because we're not there yet, right? No. The Lasers are not going to fire Todd Bowles this week. He will more than likely get the rest of the season. That has been their MO. I think I've explained that on last night's podcast. I explained that in my 2-point conversion column, which got a lot of reads. So thank you all for that. I'm going to drop that in the chat in case you missed it. But we're gonna break this down, this press conference down, because he did say a lot of important things.
Yes.
And I've got some kind of inside scoop I'm going to be dishing out that's going to help you understand some of what he's saying and some of what he's not saying, and not making any excuses for him whatsoever. Right? He is. Right now, he's on the hot seat. And matter of fact, I think we might be the only media outlet that's actually kind of come out in saying that. And I know we're kind of stating the obvious, but other media outlets really aren't. And we're going to call like we see it. And I've had relationships with every head coach here in Tampa, and there's no sacred cows. General manager Jason Licht is not a sacred cow either. I've had relationships with previous general managers. So it's our job to be honest, be objective, be realistic about the team. And I think that's why you guys make Pewter Report so popular, is because you want the truth and not sugarcoating and not excuses. And sometimes when we tell you a reason, it might come across as an excuse, but we're not in the excuse business. Sometimes there are some valid, legitimate reasons why things are happening or not, and we try to do our best to kind of parse that and say, this is what's happening, this is what's not happening. And Todd Bowles, we got him, Matt, today with some of our questions to open up and kind of really state what's going on.
Yeah, and we don't try to peacock ourselves too much by any means. We're not really in the business of doing that. But again, like the Byron Leftwich news, Pewter Report reported it first before anything else. Even stuff like, D. Delaney's going to play a little bit more in this game. And then what happened? D. Delaney played a little bit more in the game. So
not
you
enough.
always got to go, not enough, but a little bit more. You always got to go to Pewter Report for all the best knowledge about your favorite team. Scott has been doing this for years and years and years, and that's why he's the best in the game. That's why we do this. We also do this, or one of our other rules, of course, outside of telling the truth or call it like we see it with the Bucs, is we always answer super chats when we get them, and we got them already, not even 5 minutes into the show. So thank you so much to Catherine Lobata. I hope I'm saying that correctly, or Loboda. But Catherine, thank you so much for the $10 super chat. As Catherine says, finally catching you guys live for the first time ever.
Awesome.
Woohoo! A small victory before I'm reminded of how depressing yesterday was. Love you guys. Catherine, thank you so much for all your support. So happy you could join us today. It's not a victory Monday, but it's a roll call Monday. We'll get to roll call in a couple of minutes at 420. But Catherine, thank you so much for joining us today.
That's awesome.
Love that you're able to watch. And, of course, we are happy to answer a follow-up comment if you got a question later on.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, Todd Bowles is quite interesting today because I think it kind of came around with Todd where you can only get away with saying communication and this was a bust and this for so long before it's
Yeah.
like give us something a little bit more because the same thing you said after you lost the first game outside of the bye isn't really cutting
Right.
anymore. So this first video I'm going to play, it actually wasn't the first question that was
Yeah.
asked. I think it was the most impactful response that Todd Bowles had. This was a question, of course, from Pewter Report's own Scott Reynolds. Just what's going wrong with the lack of communication? Which, as we found out from Todd Bowles, might not exactly be a communication thing.
So when there's communication problems out there on the field, and again, a lot of these guys have played together now, Coach.
That's very true.
What is going wrong in terms of communication? Can you dissect that for us? What's not happening in terms of communication? Run us through an example.
It's really not all communication. Some people just busting, and it's as simple as that. And we're saying communication, and we're putting a bow on it, but certain people got to play better. It's really that simple. It's not even a communication issue for the most part, and it wasn't yesterday. And we just got to play better. And we can say it's communication all we want. Some things don't even require communication. It requires playing better and things they've done 1,000,000 times, and they just got to do it.
Matt, when that question was answered, I looked at you, you looked at me, yeah, we're like, wow, because that was it was as honest as Todd Bowles has been. Yeah. And basically he said, listen, I've been BSing you guys for a long time, trying to protect my players by saying communication. We had communication issues, communication. And I just got fed up with him saying communication. Like, what do you mean? Like, give us a detailed example. And he said, all right, you know what? It's not communication.
Yeah. It's like
it's our players have to play better, and it's, and we actually heard him use a player's name today. He said Carlton had a bad day, right? We've been talking about Carlton Davis. And that's a little refreshing. And I appreciate and understand why Todd Bowles doesn't want to throw his players under the bus. Some coaches are very much like that. Other coaches, John Gruden, Bruce Arians, would call it like they see it. And they would not throw you under the bus, but they would call you out in press conferences, right? How many times did we hear, Tom didn't play well, right? Talking about Tom Brady and PFF.
And they were like, oh my God, like, how could you say something like that?
Right. Pro Football Talk would have a conniption.
Bruce ain't changing for the GOAT. Bruce ain't changing for Tom Brady.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes that has to be said, right? And it's like, I understand Todd Bowles, he's different behind closed doors. He is. I've been in his office. I've had conversations with him where it is not the dude at the press conference. Like, I understand maybe having two personas, but at the same time, though, sometimes you have to use the media. Sometimes you have to use the media to light a fire under these players and let them know that, hey, I'm going to put you on blast. Like, you deserve to be put on blast. You don't be put on blast, play better.
Yeah.
And it's one thing, and what's the whole politeness thing? It's like, criticize in private and praise in public. Sometimes that doesn't work. Sometimes players need to be called out and have a little bit of public scorn, to have some pride, to play better than that. Man, Carlton Davis making $14.83 million. And you know what? Sometimes players go through personal things in their life. Donovan Smith had a very tragic year last year. He did not play well as a result, right? So we have to take that into consideration. These football players are not robots. They're human beings as well. But sometimes it's the, you think that you're better than you are. You're looking at your paycheck every Friday saying, wow, I'm one of the top cornerbacks in the league. And I'm not saying Carlton's doing that. But he didn't play well. And this team is counting on him to play well. And it's putting Todd Bowles in a very bad position because if he plays zone, the Bucs coverage sucks. If he plays man, the Bucs coverage sucks. He's kind of in no man's land. And again, no excuse for Todd Bowles. He's the head coach. It's his job to fix it, especially on that side of the ball. So there's no passes for Bowles. But I'm just saying that Todd was pretty honest with us, Matt, reading between the lines of like, hey, I could do anything. Blitz, not blitz. Zone, man, whatever. And it didn't matter because my players didn't play well yesterday.
It's interesting that Todd Bowles is willing to cover for some of his players when some of his players will not cover on defense.
Well said.
To be fair to Bowles, he was asked specifically about Carlton, so he wasn't just like, by the way, Carlton Davis was bad today. Like, he was asked straight up about Carlton. We could play that video in a little bit. But I think it is good for Todd to just give us something, not even just us, the media, just say something a little bit different. Because to your point, like, listen, Todd can cover for everybody as much as he wants.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that is still going to get him fired.
That's right.
You know,
That's right.
And so you're at the point for Todd Bowles that you pretty much have to try anything to try to keep your job. And I'm not saying Todd is going to come out every single week and say, this guy sucked, JTS couldn't get to the quarterback, Ryan Neal blew another coverage. And if he individually calls out every single player, that's going to save Todd by throwing other people under the bus. That's absolutely not going to save his job. But in terms of creating a spark, trying to build something a little bit different, maybe, again, it was you trying to pry it out of Todd Bowles, but we got a little bit of something out of Todd, which was, again, a nice little mix-up. We got a nice little super chat here from Les Evans. Thank you for the $5 super chat. As Les says, some got to win, some got to lose. Good time Charlie's got the blues. Good time Charlie's got the blues. Yeah, I feel for you, Bucs fans. I mean, they haven't won. It's got to be over a month now, right? Because it was week 4, and then they had the bye, and then they've lost 4 in a row. So, even Todd said today, it was something along, I'm paraphrasing, but it was something along the lines of like, we don't even know what winning is like anymore. It's been so long since.
No, we appreciate all of the super chats here. This is from Paul, aka Florida Dream House. $2 super chat. PR asks tough questions with respect and is respected. We appreciate that, and it's never personal. And we don't try to grandstand or anything. I'm not going to sit there and try to be flamboyant and get into a back and forth with the coach, whoever the coach is. But at the same time, we have to ask pointed questions. And, the thing is to be real. I mean, to know our audience, it's you guys, it's the Pewter people, right? I don't have a dog in this fight per se. This is my job. This is Matt's job. It's not like we're rooting against the Buccaneers by any means, but we're not. We can't root for the Buccaneers. At the same time, though, you see most people, not all, but most people really put a lot of blood, sweat, and tears into this in the organization from top to bottom. And you want to see them do well. Like I love the Victory Monday shows, right? They're more fun than the Todd Bowles on the hot seat shows, right? And I feel like I've done too many of these columns and stories and podcasts, right? From Raheem Morris, Greg Schiano, Lovie Smith, Dirk Cutter, right? I mean, we're going down that road again, and it's not fun. And for old timers like myself and Rick Stroud, especially, who've been here since the Sam Weiss days, you kind of get used to winning a little bit, and it's a little bit more fun. And it's for you fans, it's more fun, right? So it's not. We don't relish this, but at the same time, we're going to ask tough questions, and we're going to do our job
because you guys want answers. The Pewter people want answers. So, and we are the. I don't know, I guess the middleman between the fan base and hearing directly from the coaches and players' mouths. And, to that point, it's like when you're talking to a player, what do you think players would rather be asked? Like, why did you guys suck on Sunday? Or why were you guys so amazing?
Yeah,
exactly.
It's just,
winning obviously breeds a lot of positivity, but keeping up with the super chats, which, again, we appreciate everybody. Hezo813 with a $5 super chat says, SR, Matty Diamond. I'm of the mindset that once Bowles is gone, Light deserves to stay on and lead the search for the next head coach, but that's his last shot. Thoughts?
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. That'll get your take in a second, but yes, it's rare that Jason Licht gets to go through as many coaches as he has, right? At the same time, Lovie Smith hired Jason Licht, in 2014. So usually the general manager hires the coach. The Glazers hired Lovie Smith. Lovie Smith hired Jason. 2 years later, Jason fired the guy that hired him, right? And at the same time, they had drafted Jameis Winston, right? They were literally a couple years into the Winston experiment. And Dirk Cutter was the offensive coordinator. And Winston, remember, as a rookie, it was an injury replacement, but he went to the Pro Bowl. Like, he showed some promising signs early on that, okay, this guy maybe is a franchise type quarterback. So he made the decision to promote Dirk. Blazers were on board with that, right? And then Dirk ultimately didn't work out. Then he went outside the building for another hire. And you know what? Jason Licht had the relationship with Bruce Arians, got him out of retirement. And then a year later, because of the roster that Jason Licht had built, the offensive line, Matt, right? Ryan Jensen, Ali Marpet, DeMar Dotson was still hanging on, until the end. Donovan Smith was playing better football back then. And the defensive players, the trade for JPP, right? Yeah. Drafting Vita Vea, et cetera. So he attracted Tom Brady. And, and he still gets credit for that. He's proven to the Blazers he built a Super Bowl roster. He has found diamonds in the rough like Shaq Barrett in 2019. He has signed Tom Brady. He has made trades for Gronk and JPP. Some of those draft picks have been absolute hits. Chris Godwin in the 3rd round. Some of them, Mike Evans, his first overall pick, was a huge hit. They're like every general manager. There's been some draft misses for sure. This was an instance with Todd Bowles where this was kind of Bruce's call, and the Blazers let Bruce make that call, and the Blazers signed off on the Bowles hire, and so did Jason. But this wasn't like we're going to open up the search, right? And we're going to hire Todd Bowles. No, it wasn't that. This was not a coaching search type thing. And so for that reason, and because of the fact that Jason's done it before, and I think the Blazers trust Jason, and I think he's going to get one more shot at hiring another head coach, but it will be the last one. Jason, if he wants to stick around, he's got to find another Bruce Arians type. It won't be an older guy. It'll be a younger, probably offensive play caller, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I think Jason, again, because of winning that Super Bowl and what he did recruiting Tom Brady, which, in part also recruited Rob Gronkowski, and he built a Super Bowl winning team, because even before that, it was like, oh, man, they're just a quarterback away, and bam, you got Tom. So Jason deserves the right to find another head coach if and when they fire Todd Bowles. This is also Jason's probably his last time to find that quarterback that could be the franchise quarterback, because obviously it didn't work with Jameis. But I think the whole story of Jason Licht is super important, because it's a great example of, I understand we all want to win now. We want instant gratification. We want go, work. And many other franchises, Jason would have never even had the opportunity to hire Bruce Arians in the first place. He would have been let go because of the losing seasons with Lovey and with Dirk Cutter. So whether it's a coach that it hasn't worked, or a coordinator, or a quarterback right now, sometimes playing the long game pays off. And that's the exact example with Jason Licht. So I do hope that he'll stay on if they fire Todd Bowles, and that he can be the guy to find the next head coach, and hopefully the same quarterback as well. Hopefully you guys will all join us right now, because it is 4:20. It is time for some roll call. What we do every single Monday, because we love the Pewter people. We love so much interacting with all of you. This is just another fun way we interact with everybody. We do it every Monday at 4:20. Where one of us will start going on a rant or a diatribe about something with this Buccaneers team. And in the meantime, if you guys want to put in the comments where you were watching the show from, because we have awesome fans, not just in Florida, not just in the U.S., but international as well. We'll put in the comments where you are watching from. Give a little shout out to a couple of our fans across the globe watching today.
Yep. I'm going to go on a little rant here, if I could. This has just been something that's been on my mind, especially given yesterday's loss, and also to just kind of this losing streak that the Bucs are on now, which is now 4 games, and will probably end up being 2 more losses. I think they're going to be looking at 6 straight losses here. I think Tennessee is going to come in. I don't know if they're going to fix their problems in a week. And is the offense, is it going to be more of what we saw yesterday, which is Cade Otton, right, showing up in the pass game, Rachaad White having 100 yards again total, and then Mike, and then more of Chris? Are we going to see this offense live up to its potential against a very tough, rugged Tennessee Titans defense? I don't know. Maybe it was an aberration. Maybe it's a sign of things to come. But right now, it looks like the offense is going to have to come to the rescue of the defense a little bit. The defense wore the superhero cape for a couple of weeks to start the season, but now the wheels are kind of falling off the wagon a little bit. And Jamel Dean is probably going to miss this game with concussion. He went out in the first quarter of the game yesterday. Carlton Davis didn't play well. Zion McCollum did not play well coming in. Of course, we know Ryan Neal didn't play well. But I'll say this. You have to wonder, because I know Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis, they cashed in on some rich contracts. But have they gotten better over the last couple of years? Or have they plateaued? Or have they gotten worse? At some point in time, you have to examine the coaching, because coaching does matter. It's a coach's job to get a player to play better and to develop their skills. And sometimes it's, what's the old saying? You can't make chicken salad out of chicken, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that's the case. Sometimes you draft the bus. Sometimes you have a player that just isn't good, and a coach can only do so much. I look at Rod Marinelli, for example, right? I think you pluck Warren Sapp and Simeon Rice into any defensive line coach's room, right? And they're going to be great players, and they're going to make their position coaches look really good as a result. But you examine Rod Marinelli, what he did with the Buccaneers under not just Tony Dungy, but also under John Gruden. And you saw like a 13-sack season for Marcus Jones, who was not a very good player, but not really a bust in the first round, but never lived up to his potential and his athletic prowess. But he had a 13-sack season. You look at 1998, who was the Bucs' leading sacker that year? It wasn't Warren Sapp. It was actually undersized nose tackle Brad Culpepper, who had 9 sacks, including a safety that year. That shows me Marinelli can coach. It wasn't just having a couple Hall of Fame caliber players and Sapp and Rice that got the job done, but he made Greg Spires better. He made Brad Culpepper better. He made Marcus Jones better. He made Reagan Upshaw play as good as he could, and he wasn't even really that great of a player in the first round back in 1996. But that's the mark of a good coach. So when you look around here, is it Logan Hall? Or is it Casey Rogers not really developing Logan Hall? Is it Joe Tryon-Shoyinka? Or is it the fact that they replaced Bob Sanders, the outside linebackers coach, with another outside linebackers coach, George Edwards, who hasn't really made much of an impact? He got a lot of credit for Micah Parsons being well in Dallas, but
I think we're learning it's a little more Micah Parsons than
right. Yeah. So coaching matters, and you look at this coaching staff, and I see Kevin Ross, and what do we hear, Matt? We hear, well, the Bucs DBs, they go up to Todd Bowles' room to watch film. Well, why aren't they watching film with Kevin Ross in the cornerbacks room, right? Nick Rapone, I love Nick Rapone, but he's in his 70s. He was Todd Bowles' position coach at Temple. And sometimes coaches, they have to make the tough decisions to fire people on their staffs that they like, that they've had relationships with. But at the end of the day, you got to look at this and say, am I getting the production I want out of these coaches? Are they making our players better? Or are these players sliding down? Or are they staying stagnant? I think you have to look at not just Todd Bowles, who fired a bunch of offensive coaches. That's great. And the only defensive coach he fired, Matt, was Bob Sanders, who was a coaching buddy of Bruce Arians, who Bruce hired, not Todd.
Yeah.
But Bruce is higher now. George Edwards isn't really doing a great job with Yaya Diaby or Anthony Nelson or Shaq Barrett or Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. And so sometimes when you look at great coaches, and this is something that Jason Licht needs to really consider the next time he goes out and hires a coach, which will probably be next year, you're not just getting a head coach or a coordinator. You have to find coaches that have really good staffs. Mm-hmm. And sometimes the head coach makes those assistants better. And I think we're seeing Bruce Arians made all of these coaches, a lot of them are fired now, made them better. And that's a special trait. That's a special quality. I can look at the Greg Schiano staff. PJ Fleck was one of the best receivers coaches I've ever seen. He's the head coach at Minnesota Golden Gophers now, right?
Yep.
But the two best coaching staffs that I've seen were Tony Dungy's and John Gruden's, and you throw Bruce Arians in there too, right? I mean, those were the best 3 coaches in Bucs history. They had good staffs. But it's the guy at the top that holds those position coaches accountable And I'm not sure that we're getting that from Todd Bowles with his assistants. I think the assistants are kind of letting Bowles and the players down as much as the players are.
And it's like a mishmash of like some players or some coaches from Bruce Arians, some that Todd Bowles brought in. So I wonder how much of the continuity is involved in there. By the way, want to give a shout out to everybody for participating during roll call today. We had a great turnout. Want to give a personal shout out to a couple of people. We'll pick a couple of people each show.
Okay.
Starting internationally, Joe Wisniewski watching from Germany. That's pretty
Nice.
cool. Adam Davies, a constant commenter, watching from South Wales in the UK. And then from Florida, we got Craig Ford from Melbourne Beach. And Nobi Davis right in our backyard here in Tampa. And last but not least, some other fans across the U.S. Wade Butler from Front Royal, Virginia. BAA from Mobile, Alabama, which will be at.
We'll be there soon. Saucy Q's Barbecue.
Yeah. Chris Gover from Oregon City, Oregon. And RPM 1129 from Queens, New York, where Christian Isian is from.
Yeah, my dad actually has some property up in Front Royal, Virginia, and I'm very familiar with that area. It's
awesome.
Great hunting area up there.
Didn't even know that. And there you go. Now there's a Pewter Report connection to it. We're going to get back to all of these super chats in just one moment, but we've had so many people during roll call today. It's time to tell all of you, so many people, about the best energy drink around that you could find, which of course is Celsius Energy Drinks, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast and the Pewter Post Game Show. There is no sugar, no post energy drink crash or jitters that you might get with another product out there. Just so many awesome different flavors, from the new Cosmic Vibe to the sparkling orange pomegranate, the strawberry lemonade, and of course the Arctic Vibe is my personal favorite. Strawberry Acai is great too. If you need to know where to find one, go to the Celsius Store Locator. You just on their website, you just punch in your address and it'll tell you the closest location where you can pick one up. Might be like a Walmart or a Target, a 7-Eleven, health and fitness store, or if you're lucky, maybe if you're from Queens, New York, you could find a bodega. And once you keep going to your bodega, you know you love Celsius so much and you want more. That's when you can buy them in bulk. I'd recommend getting that variety pack, because variety is the spice of life. Have it sent to your residence whenever you want with the subscribe and save on Amazon. It could be every week, month, quarterly, yearly, whenever you want. Just make Celsius your number one pick. Celsius, the official sponsor of the Pewter Report podcast. Love seeing all the comments of everybody talking about picking up their favorite flavors of Celsius. Absolutely love to see it.
Yeah. And Mike Reynolds, no relation, at least not that I'm aware of, says, "Oh, hi. I lived in Winchester briefly, right next door neighbor to Front Royal. Yeah, I was actually at the Winchester Hospital as a kid. I had a bad sinus infection, so bad I had to go to the ER. But yeah, familiar with that area up in Northern Virginia. Beautiful country.
Well, glad you made it out tip top.
I did, yeah.
Because then we wouldn't have the Pewter Report podcast.
That's right. Yeah.
All right, Bucs Basement. Thank you for the $4.99 super chat. Appreciate all you guys' patience. We got a lot of super chats to get to. Are we confident Light and the owners understand the NFL is played on offense and to hire an offensive-minded head coach instead of defense again? Well, to be fair, Bruce Arians was an offensive head coach. Dirk Cutter was an offensive head coach. So they have tried to go offense. It clearly worked with Bruce
and John
Arians.
Gruden too. They won 2 Super Bowls with 2 offensive-minded head coaches and 2 very good defensive coordinators. Right, the Todd Bowles back in 2020 was pretty good, and Monty Kiffin in 2002 was also very good. So you're right, Matt.
And Bowles getting hired, that's such a specific situation that you don't really find yourself in a crazy amount of, like, just the long-term relationship. And really, it was like, well, is it going to be Todd or is it Leftwich? Oh, Todd has head coaching experience.
Yeah.
Could have been Byron Leftwich for all we know.
Yeah. Funny comment here from Venu. We're going to mix in some other comments too, but super chats, you do get top priority. But when we see a really good post, we're going to put that in there too. Bucs giving me heartburns. Can Alka-Seltzer be a PR sponsor? Yeah. Understand it for sure.
Mark Fisher with a $1.99 super chat. Thank you, Mark. Rev Fish says, is this as simple as man-to-man defense versus zone?
Yeah, I mean, right now they're not. They're not doing either one great by any means, and there's nothing more frustrating than than being out there calling plays and nothing works. That happened to me. Just personal experience, right? Whatever level you're at, high school, college, Pop Warner, like I was, there's certain days where I was out there and we've just got our asses kicked, and like you're trying everything. Let's put this guy here. Let's call this defense. We're doing this coverage, and just nothing works. And that's what happened yesterday with Todd Bowles and the Bucs defense. Whatever they tried to do didn't work. If I could go back in time and play Todd Bowles and get inside his microphone, I would have called more pressure. I would have lived and died in the second half because if my memory serves, they blitzed Stroud 10 of 24 times in the first quarter, which is about 41%. And he had a touchdown pass. And he completed, high percentage of his throws. He also got sacked once. But Matt, at the end of the day, he only scored 10 points, right? Mm-hmm. The offense scored 10 points. In the second half, Bowles blitzed 3 times on 20 dropbacks, and they scored 29 points, and he threw 4 more touchdowns. So I think in hindsight, it just tells you if you're going to live or die with either 1,000 cuts by playing soft zone coverage or just the dagger to the heart, like at least take a chance and try to get pressure, because they can't. And I appreciated Rick Stroud's question today at the end of the press conference. The Bucs just can't get pressure with 4. They just can't.
Yeah.
They're not good enough up front.
Why hear us talk about blitzing when you could just hear Todd Bowles?
Yep.
So here's Todd.
Backs in the first half. The Texans only scored 10 points in the second half, and 20 dropbacks from Stroud. You blitzed only 3 times. They got 29 points.
Well, some of the dropbacks we had the lead, and it was late. We blitzed in the third quarter, and it burned us, so we went back to playing some more zone.
So he has to speed up instead of a 4-man rush?
There's a lot of both, and usually that's the type of person I am, but with the way we were playing and some certain guys in different situations, you didn't want to do it.
Conversions on 3rd and 10 along with no other team in the NFL has given up more than 28%. Is that just more of the same, or why does that continue to be a kind of a weak spot defensively?
Well, some of it, the pass rush got to get there too. When you're playing zone coverage and even man coverage, if you don't get the pass rush, the coverage isn't going to be as good, and vice versa. And then some of it is tackling screens. They had a screen backed up yesterday that we had tackles and angles on that we just not make.
Talk about the coverage, but in general, is the consistent or lack of consistent 4-man pressure the difference for you guys this year? It just hasn't been there consistently.
I don't think it's been there consistently. Pass rush helps the coverage. The coverage helps the pass rush. They go hand in hand. So it's all 11 guys and all coaches involved on that side of the ball.
We had talked about that there's been struggles with the front 4 specifically getting after the quarterback, and Todd Bowles kind of confirmed that with this answer.
What are your thoughts on the amount of pressure that the defense was able to get on the quarterback, and what type of impact or how that impacted the game?
I think in the 4-man rush, we didn't have enough pressure at all. We didn't blitz. We didn't get that much pressure other than Shaq. Shaq got some pressure here and there, and Cansey was he made some plays there, but we got to get more pressure from everybody else. I don't think that was good at all.
So there you go. More from Bowles about just the overall debacle that was the defense yesterday. But we got more super chats to get to, so let's keep it rolling. Thank you to Tom Bucs fan for this $10 super chat. Tom says, check out the clock in the fourth quarter. Based on the rule, the clock should be at 44 seconds where Evans recovered the ball. Talking about the play when Trey Palmer fumbled. Running clock. 5 seconds ran off before review. The refs moved it to 49.
Yeah, there's no doubt. It was that happened. I think I was a little off in mine. I tweeted about this earlier, or exposed, whatever you want to call it. And I said it should have been moved to 39 seconds. But I guess the official rule is it's when the fumble occurred is where is when the clock is supposed to be reset. So I don't know. I don't know if Todd Bowles did the right thing or not by taking that timeout. I don't know.
Because it's hindsight, right?
It is. It's hindsight.
You know that they scored the touchdown. So in that sense, you go, oh, well, you could have killed 15 more seconds. But in reality, in the moment, you're thinking Baker, even though you protected the ball well this season, don't throw an interception.
Right. Don't get sacked.
Don't
right?
do something dumb, because we saw
Yeah.
the Atlanta game when they had a chance
Yes.
to tie it up. They threw the interception. They ended up tying it later, but
Exactly.
we've
and
seen
not just that,
before.
Matt. It's not like this offense has been good in the red zone. Like, I don't think Todd Bowles
Yeah.
was thinking, oh, we're going to score right here on this first play, a 15-yard dart to Kate Otten. I mean, I don't think that he thought that was going to happen. I think that he probably thought, we're probably gonna have to score in the last play of the game here, or kick a field goal, right, to send it to overtime. I think they scored a little too quickly, and that caught everybody off guard, including Bowles.
Yeah, I think even Kate Otten was a little surprised he scored a
Yeah.
second touchdown of the game, which that would have been the second career game-winning touchdown for Kate Otten too, because he did it last season when the Bucs were doing those 10,000 comebacks and everything. But anyway, moving on. Ward Burns, thank you for the $5 super chat, who says, Harbaugh to the Bucs. We can argue whether Bowles is good enough to be head coach, but there's no argument who is better. Harbaugh is a winner like his brother. I'm not even going to answer necessarily about Harbaugh, because the issue with Harbaugh is he's going to want his own team. He's pretty much going to want to run everything. He'll probably want to be the GM as well. Harbaugh is very much his way or the highway, which I don't know if that meshes well with the Buccaneers, and especially with Jason still there at general manager.
It probably would cost Jason his job, and that's what the Blazers would have to decide: is do we want to keep Jason and have him find a head coach? Do we want to hire Jim Harbaugh? The other thing too is Jim Harbaugh is going to cost a lot more.
Yes,
a lot more than like a Ben Johnson or Todd Monken or someone like that. And I think the Blazers would rather pay players than coaches.
Mm-hmm.
They opened up the checkbook for John Gruden for sure on his second contract, but then they also fired him. They opened up the checkbook for Bruce Arians, but from what I understand, they really didn't. Certainly didn't for Raheem Morris. Really didn't for Greg Schiano either. Either Lovie Smith. So Harbaugh, would change everything from. He would blow it up and start over. And at the same time, if it doesn't work out, you're starting over at ground zero with Harbaugh, and then you're starting over at ground zero if it doesn't work out, right? And there's always going to be a thing too with Harbaugh is if he's not having success, he could always jump back to college, where some college would open up the checkbook. So there's always kind of that threat, right? Where if you went with a guy like Ben Johnson or Todd Monken or whatever, he's not going to bail at the first sign of trouble. And we saw that with Steve Spurrier, right? He left Washington, went back to South Carolina, right? Went back to college. Same thing with Nick Saban. Didn't work out with the Dolphins.
Mm-hmm.
Fine. I'm going to go right back to college and get a college job. So there's also that little bit of, if he's not winning early, he wants to protect his reputation, right? And get out of Dodge. And so that would be a real concern of mine if I'm the Blazers is, Harbaugh is going to be both feet in for year one, but depending on how year one goes, is he going to be 1 foot in, 1 foot out in year two? And that would be that would give me pause.
Now, besides Harbaugh, what I would say if I'm the Bucs and you're obviously trying to bring in a new head coach, there's going to be a couple of head coaching vacancies. There just is every single year.
Right.
My pitch or my convincing platform to said head coach would be like, hey, listen, you're still coming to a division where it's essentially pretty open. The Falcons still aren't that good. The Saints are only getting older season by season. Their car isn't lighting it up by any means, even though he was the de facto best quarterback in the division when the season got going. And the Panthers are clearly not going anywhere this season.
Right.
So that would be one thing. I would also say, regardless of what's up with Mike Evans, you still have Chris Godwin at wide receiver. And if you sign Tristan Wirfs to an extension, you still have a very young offensive line with Tristan and Gedeke and Cody Mauch. So you have a young offensive line that is still working together. And, Winfield on the back end. And you're not in the same financial situation that you were last year with paying off Tom Brady. You have cap room to bring in more players.
Probably a top 10 draft pick. Right now they're picking number 8.
Tampa Bay, for a head coach next season, if they go that route, is not the worst situation. Like, I'd rather go to the Bucs than the Bears. In that type.
Well, the interesting thing too, Matt, is I'm going to be doing a Pewter Pulse on this later tonight. Is just give you like a little taste of it. the NFC South, there could be as many as 3 firings in the NFC South. In other words, whoever wins the division, whether it's Dennis Allen, whether it's Arthur Smith, whether it's Todd Bowles, they might have a reprieve for 1 year, but the other coaches, they might get canned. I mean, you might see 3 new head coaches next year in the NFC South. I think that owner in Carolina is not happy at all, right? I mean, you look at what C.J. Stroud's doing. Even though he lost to the Panthers and Bryce Young, he's clearly outperforming Bryce Young.
Especially if Bryce Young doesn't play well against the Bucs. And it's like, oh, well, Stroud did this against the Bucs. You telling me?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Moving on, let's talk a little bit of positivity from Ryan Giles. Thank you for the $1.99 super chat. As Ryan says, as sad as yesterday was, talking about Rashad White, looked great. I wouldn't say great. He had 2 touchdowns, which is awesome.
Yeah.
And that was the first multi-touchdown game of his career. That in of itself is great. But also, he had 73 rushing yards. Let's not act like he broke the single season game record for rushing yards in a game. He had 73 rushing yards and 46 receiving yards.
Yeah.
Because this offense has been so pedestrian and the run game has been so bad. Yeah, it kind of sticks out that Rashad White looked good. Now, I think for the first time, maybe all season, he had a couple of rushes that went for first downs on first down, or whatever the run was, it went for 12 or 15 yards. So that's definitely a step in the right direction.
Yeah, it is.
Rashad White, I think, Kate Otten had a good game. It's still the Mike and Chris show, but Rashad White is weapon number 3. And like you said, he's like an old man Alvin Kamara in terms of just throwing on the football.
Yeah, and I think the thing too is when you look at Rashad White, I wouldn't say great. I mean, if you look at Keaton Mitchell, who I liked coming out of East Carolina, right, and he's kind of been buried on the depth chart in Baltimore a little bit and maybe had some injuries at the beginning of the season. He had 9 carries for 138 yards yesterday and a touchdown for the Ravens, essentially in his debut. He played a couple snaps, caught 1 pass for 9 yards against the Lions, but it was in mop-up duty. But still, he averaged 15.3 yards per carry. It's pretty good. Had a 40-yard touchdown and a 60-yard run. So when I'm using the word great, I look at guys that are averaging, 15 yards per carry, not 3.3. Not trying to throw shade at Rashad White. He's played better the last 2 weeks, but I think ideally he's a great third down back and he's a number 2 back, but I don't know that he's going to be a feature back for the Buccaneers or for anybody.
Thank you to Kathy Gillespie for this $5 super chat who says, head coach and defensive coordinator too much? Heard you ask a question. Defense noticeably worse since 2021. Yeah, so yesterday after the game, Rick Stroud had asked Todd about if he would relinquish defensive play calling duties, and then Greg Allman asked him that something similar to that today, and he said that's not really an option, and it kind of goes back to what we've been talking about from the beginning, or what Todd has been talking about, which is guys just need to play better. And it's not even communication at this point. It's looking yourself in the mirror. So,
and also, too, I don't think that if you look at Larry Foote, is Devin White playing great? You're the inside linebackers coach. No, he's not. Yeah. And you're looking at Casey Rogers. Is Logan Hall developing? And is my defensive line playing great? Which defensive tackles had sacks yesterday? Okay, Cansey had 1, but but you know what I'm saying? So I think there's part of that, too. I don't know that either candidate, Foote or Casey Rogers, is like a shining star at one Buccaneer place where you want to sit there and say, oh, you're doing this right, so I'm going to reward you with play calling duty. I don't think that's happening.
Not at the moment. Thanks to Claude Bassel for the $5 super chat. I tried finding another comment from you. We got so many comments right now, so really appreciate the super chat. Appreciate everybody in the comments.
Yes, for sure.
Claude, if we find another comment from you, happily we'll throw it up on there. But thank you to Claude. Tyler Thomas for the $5 super chat. Thanks, Tyler, who says, SR, given the text you got from Greenberg after starting 2-0, do you think there is a longer leash? Curious about expectations within the building.
Longer leash for Todd Bowles? No. I think he's got to win this year. I think Rondé Barber was right on the money when we had Rondé on this podcast, Matt, and we asked him about Todd Bowles. Yeah, and he said he's got to win this year. And everything that I've kind of gleaned, that's the case. He needs to win this year. That means 9-8, making the playoffs or better. And when you look at the upcoming schedule, and it looks a little bleak right now, right? I mean, this is the remaining schedule. If you want to put that super chat down for 1 second, Matt.
Yes.
This was prior to the Houston game, right? So these records have not been updated. But this is the schedule here. So the San Fran game is going to be a loss for sure. I believe the Jacksonville game will be a loss. There's 2, right? You've already played Houston. Again, these records need to be updated. This is from last week. I'm just throwing it up just to give you the opponents who they're going to play. The Tennessee game is going to be a dogfight. Probably the Bucs lose that. You lose to the 49ers. The Colts game is going to be a very tough one. Believe it or not, Gardner Minshew. And the defense is playing well in Indianapolis, right?
Mm-hmm.
You should sweep Carolina. You have a chance to get back in this if you can steal a win in Atlanta and beat New Orleans, Green Bay. That's going to be tough going up there in December. Really, if you count San Francisco and Jacksonville as losses, Tampa Bay has to win 6 out of the remaining 7 games, 6 out of the other 7 games, right? So can they do that? Well, I don't know. I don't know that they can, Matt. I really don't.
No,
I don't think they can, because you should have beat the Falcons the first time, and you should have beat the Texans yesterday, and you didn't. So that doesn't give me hope that you can win 6 out of those 7 games if you lose to Jacksonville, if you lose to the 49ers.
Yeah, the coin flip games, and they're 0-2 at least in their last 2 coin flip games.
That's
which
right.
would be Atlanta and Houston. Yep. So to think that they're just going to go 6-7 is a mighty stretch.
Yeah.
For this team. There you are. Scott Jacks with the $9.99 super chat. Thanks, Scott. Who says, we have a player's coach. He protects them from foxes like a mother hen. It's not working. He needs to flush that. It ain't working. He needs to flush it and go all Gruden on them. Thoughts?
I think that what this team is missing that they had with Bruce Arians was that fear factor. That, Bruce Arians is famous for being, jovial and saying, I cuss him out, and then I hug him.
Coach him hard, hug him later. I think
exactly. Right. I don't know that Bowles is doing the cussing part, and not that you have to use foul language, but there was a fear factor with Bruce Arians. He would bench your ass. He would cut you. Right. I mean, he had a temper, right. And he would lay into guys. And I don't know that there's that fear factor. And when you see players week after week, like Ryan Neal, that should have been benched, Devin White, who should have been benched a couple times last year and this year as well, and they continue to stay out there in the starting lineup, other players notice that. And it says, well, if you're going to give him leeway, then, you can give me leeway too. And it shouldn't be that way. Everybody should be, you look at some of the best coaches, man, Jimmy Johnson, Bill Parcells, they're, a little bit of fear factor goes a long way. John Gruden was that way. Bruce Arians was that way. And those are the 2 Super Bowl winning head coaches in Tampa.
Yeah, and on top of that, certainly Bruce was. We talked earlier about guys like JPP. We're definitely hold people accountable, and even having Brady in there.
Yes,
Brady even in his first season, but he's he obviously built that big career before he even got.
Did not want to disappoint the GOAT.
You did not want to draw the ire of Tom Brady, and that plays a role into things. Who's that guy now? In this Bucs locker room.
Yeah.
We don't know.
That's right.
Maybe, is it a little too buddy at times?
Mm-hmm.
Might be. Anyway, Meets McGee with the $2 super chat. John McKay had Joe Gibbs on his staff.
Yep. Yeah, Joe Gibbs was, I grew up a Washington Redskins fan. I was born in Northern Virginia, and it was my first team. John Riggins was my guy. I had a dog named Manley after Dexter Manley. One of my favorite teams, and Gibbs would hold you accountable. I mean, he looked like an accountant, but man, he had a temper too. Great offensive coordinator, great offensive mind.
One of your favorite teams probably should be the Pick'em team that you so choose on Underdog Fantasy. Make sure you use that promo code Pewter. That's PEWTER. Get a first deposit bonus when you use Underdog Fantasy. You could play the Pick'ems, which you can follow my picks every Friday on Pewter Picks and Props. Where I went 2-1 this week. Went 1-1 on my Bucs picks. But anyway, you're just picking the higher or lower on certain stats, whether it's receiving yards, passing yards. You pick up to 2 players, 1 from each team, or you could pick up to 5 and win 20 times your money. And you don't have to just do it with the Bucs games. You could do it for tonight's Jets-Chargers games. Maybe you think the Jets defense is going to smoke Justin Herbert. You're going to go lower on all the yards and stats for Justin Herbert. Whatever it is, could be football, could be baseball, basketball, hockey, all the great sports. Just Start using Underdog Fantasy. Win that money using the promo code Pewter. That's PEWTER.
Yep.
More super chats.
Keep
Yeah.
rolling in here.
Just the guy Linux. Thank you for the $5 super chat. Says, personally, I am going for 2 former Bucs to replace the current staff. Rondé for general manager and Brian Greasy for head coach, like the Shanahan tree.
Yeah. Is Brian Greasy? I think he's still a commentator, right? He's not a coach anymore, is he? I don't
Greasy?
think
Yeah, he was doing like the Monday Night Football.
Yeah,
but
right,
not
so-
anymore.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's obviously Joe Buck and Troy Aikman.
Well, yeah, I mean, I get where you're going, and I appreciate the outside the box thinking. Rondé for general manager, I could end up seeing that. I think Rondé has got he's got a good eye for talent. He is, he knows players. I mean, he played 16 years. He played with a bunch of players. He knows what greatness looks like, and I trust his eye for talent. Not getting rid of Jason anytime soon, but if it happened, I would not say Rondé Barber would be a bad hire. I think he'd be a very good hire general manager.
Vice with the $10 super chat. Appreciate you, Vice. Says, I believe there is a crisis of morale on the defensive side due to lack of progress on the offensive side. If your offense keeps losing, you start wondering why you're playing so hard. I agree with that to an extent, but then the offense played so well.
Yeah, it was not the case yesterday. I mean, Matt, they had a 10-point lead, right?
Yeah.
You had a 10-point lead. You're scoring not just a field goal in your opening drive for the second time this year, but you had a touchdown in the first quarter, right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, boy, if there's a game for the defense to play inspired football, it's kind of like finally, you guys are showing up on the other side of the ball. And I get the premise maybe in previous games, but it doesn't make sense from what happened yesterday. I mean, if anything, it should have inspired the defensive players to play even harder because, wow, we're actually playing complementary football.
I agree with you. Now, if it's something over frustration over what Bowles is calling, then there might be a little more of a sticking point.
I think that might be the case.
Yeah.
Agree, Matt.
We shall see moving forward. And moving on with the super chat, Zachary Jarvis with the $4.99 super chat says, if Licht gets fired, I wonder if Rondé Barber could be our general manager. We've seen what John Lynch did for the 49ers. Maybe Rondé could do something similar.
Yeah. Great minds think alike. We just had that comment. I mean,
exactly.
I would not doubt Rondé Barber in that capacity. I think he'd be very good.
Just a thought. Meets McGee with the $5 super chat says, can we point out all the core guys who we know that will be here for the future? And is there a hidden medical issue with Sean Tucker?
Nope. It's a pass protection issue with Sean Tucker.
Yeah.
That's the reason why he's not playing.
Yeah. As far as like core guys, I mean, they want to re-sign Tristan Wirfs or sign him to an extension, re-sign Antoine Winfield Jr.
Mm-hmm.
Outside of that, a lot of the guys are still on rookie contracts. So,
or like Vita Vea, like still on their second deal.
Vita, definitely. Carlton and Jamel is still under contract.
Yeah.
I know people aren't happy with them right now. But I mean, there's still a fair amount of core pieces.
Yeah.
Shaggy with the $10 super chat says, look at Lenny, talking about Leonard Fournette, under BA, then compare that to last year under Bowles. Discipline, accountability starts at the top.
That's a fair point, and we're seeing the contrast now, right? And last year was a very awkward year for Todd Bowles, and I don't want to say we cut him some slack, but boy, there were some extenuating circumstances, right? When you did not see eye to eye with your offensive coordinator from day one, right? Because that was Bruce's guy. Byron was Bruce's guy, not Todd's guy, right? And then on top of that, Byron doesn't play well, and it kind of makes you look right, like saying, see, I mean, it wasn't Byron that won the Super Bowl, and it wasn't just Byron and Tom. It was AB and Gronk too, because all of a sudden Mike and Chris are getting doubled, and we have no answers, right? There's no AB, there's no Gronk to be that open guy for Brady to throw to, right? And all of a sudden there's no Ali Marpet up front. There's no Ryan Jensen. Now Tom's getting hurried, right? So I get all that. But yes, there is a stark contrast between BA's coaching style and Todd's, and BA just ended up usually getting the best out of players.
Yeah, he knew how to push the right buttons.
Yes.
For whatever reason, he was just able to do that. And
well
that's
said,
why that's why he's one of the best coaches in the history of football.
Yeah, exactly. You guys come through with the super chats. We got another one here from Josh Chrysler, Matt.
We do.
$9.99 super chat.
Shout out to Josh with the $9.99 super chat, who says, I am currently studying sports journalism at Marist College. Shout out to Marist. I believe that's in Poughkeepsie, New York. I had a friend that
there you go.
went to Marist. A couple people I knew that went to Marist.
Mm-hmm.
I've been following SR and Pewter Report since childhood. any tips on how I can get into the
Making me feel
industry?
old.
Hopefully, end up covering the Bucs in a few years. Great question. I
Yeah,
already like the initiative. Scott, I'll let you answer this first. and
I
then
do
I'll
too.
chime in on my
I'm
thoughts.
happy to talk with you. You want to do like a little quick phone interview or something? I'm happy. I believe in giving back to future generations and try to help as many upcoming writers and journalists, inspiring sports, people as much as I can. So email me at sr@pewterreport.com, Josh, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, Josh, great comment, great question. Thank you for the super chat.
Kudos to you.
Just a couple of things of advice I will give.
Mhm.
First of all, try to make yourself as I was gonna say as useful as possible. Try to be able to do as many different things
Yeah.
as possible. Sure, you want to be a
Huge.
writer, that's great.
Yep.
So do 1,000 other people.
Great
Can
point.
you edit audio? Can you do graphics?
Yep.
Are you comfortable on camera talking all the time? I
Right.
think the more extensive things, especially at a place like Pewter Report, that will help you go a very long way. Stay
Yep.
consistent with your writing because, again, people wake up one day and they go, "Yeah, you know what? I got an opinion about the Bucs. I'm going to write about the Bucs," and they
Yeah.
do it for like a month,
Right.
and then they get a little tired, and then they don't
Yep.
feel like doing it anymore. And it's
That's
the
right.
flavor of the week. You got to keep consistently doing
Mhm.
it. If you reach out to someone, you may not get an answer, and this is kind of cliche. 'Cause I've heard this before, but it is true. Reply again in a respectable amount of time. Oh,
Yeah.
you haven't talked to someone in 6 months? Oh, hey, by the way, I wrote this story if you want to check it out.
Yeah.
Showing that you care and that you give a shit actually goes a very long
does.
way. Because I've had people reach out to me. Oh, hey, I want to do this. Hey, I want to do
Yeah.
that. I say, oh, that's great. Why don't you send me like a sample of your work
Right.
or something? And I get one thing, and then that's it. And I don't hear from anybody. Well, what do you want me to do? I told you to stay
Mhm.
consistent with me. I said, whenever you write something, feel free to send it to me. So, yeah, if you want to reach out to Scott, if you want to reach out to me, I'm Matt at pewterreport.com. Happy to answer any more questions, but those are some of the pieces of advice I would give.
I agree wholeheartedly. That's great advice, Matt. Don't knock on the door, people. Kick the door down. There's a lot of people that knock on our door all the time. And, they expect an answer. And it's like, you want the job, you want the opportunity, you want my time, you want Matt's time. Knock the door down. We're busy people, and that's not an excuse, but show us that you want it. How bad do you want it? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Last super chat here from Meets McGee, $2. We appreciate that. Derek Brooks is team president instead. Yeah, he's got a great gig over there working with the Lightning, but you cut him open, he bleeds pewter and red for sure. That's awesome. Derek Brooks, Ronnie Barber, get the old gang back together. Another guy that kind of bleeds pewter a little bit here is Eric Gross. Man, Eric is a huge Tampa Bay fan. And I'm a big fan of Eric's because he's the official realtor of Pewter Report. He's also a great guy. I've had a chance to get to know him. And listen, folks, this is about relationships. When you want to buy or sell your house, it's the most important and most lucrative investment you're going to make. So you want to have somebody that you can trust, somebody that you know, and that's Eric Gross. Their clients at the Eric Gross Group are not just transactions. They form lifelong friendships. Eric has done hundreds of transactions in this crazy real estate market. He's a Tampa native. He's a Pewter Report reader. His father was stationed in McDill. He knows this area. He and his team have the market knowledge, the top-notch communication, and commitment to excellence that sets them apart. Make sure that you visit their website, housesinfla.com. Housesinfla.com. Check out their website. It's got a great layout. They have all their inventory on there. Or give Eric a call. He'll talk to you and answer any questions that you might have. 513-907-4271. Again, Eric Gross Group, the official realtor of Pewter Report, and visit housesinfla.com.
We have one last super chat from
let's get
our
to it.
friend Shaggy. He just wanted to know, Scott, did you get my email?
I did get your email, and I appreciate that. And I'm sending that over to Celsius, and you can get your Celsius probably sooner rather than later. But thank you very much, Shaggy.
Great. And in the meantime, make sure you're following us on all of our social media platforms at Pewter Report on X, Instagram, Facebook, and Threads. And then, of course, our YouTube channel is Pewter Report TV, where we have the podcast 4 times a week. Scott's Pewter Pulse, my Pewter Picks and Props, various other clips and things from practice and press conferences. We have some Todd Bowles content up already from his press conference earlier in the day. As Michael Del Rosario says, Eric Gross for GM, sign a player and he'll sell them a house.
There you go.
All right,
Give
that's
him
going
the
to
signing bonus money and sell him a house at the same time.
Exactly. All right, that's going to do it for us on today's show. No show tomorrow on Tuesday. We'll have one on Wednesday because the Bucs do have another game
right.
where they are taking on another rookie quarterback in
Yeah.
Will Levis with the Tennessee Titans. But that'll do it for us today. For Scott Reynolds, I'm Matt Matera saying thanks everybody for watching. We'll see you on Wednesday for another edition of the Pewter Report podcast.
Out.